Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey,
There we go.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on, man? Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Nice to meet you. I'm Sam.
David, yeah.
I'm sorry, let me just get my shit all set. But no, it's an honor to talk. I'm a big fan, so I'm happy to have you on.
Yeah, man, thanks for reaching out.
You said, or I read that you're in Austin.
I do. I live in Austin. I've lived here 20 years basically.
Oh, really? So I was just
hmm
down there for the first time. I've never been. I'm a comedian and I know the comedy scene down there is big.
Oh yeah, I think it's blowing up, I hear.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if you know the rapper Danny Brown, but he lives down there and he's a friend of mine. So he invited me down there to check out the scene and everything.
Oh, cool. Well, how was it?
I haven't gone. I'm going literally next month, and then
Oh, you're coming here. Okay, got it.
then I was reading all your interviews. And I saw that you were from there, and I was like, oh shit, I need to ask him about it.
I feel like it's been known as a comedy town for a while now, but I think it's growing even quicker.
Yeah,
It's
during COVID,
faster.
I feel like yeah,
hmm
it was less strict down there. So then the comedy just kind of blew up, and then all the comedians moved down there.
That's funny.
How do you feel about the like influx of people moving into Austin?
You know, it's bittersweet because when you lived here 20 years ago, and then obviously even before that, there were people talking about the good old days, right? But it was just it was a sleepier little town, and you know there was a little bit less traffic, and I mean you could definitely tell like when the university kids were on vacation or something like that. It just felt like the whole town opened up.
Yeah.
There weren't lines to get into restaurants or anything like that, but now it's just like a big city, you know.
Does that like did you like it because it was small? Like
I liked it because the rent was cheap. I mean, that's why I lived here, and
yeah.
I chose not to go to LA or New York so I could just have cheap rent and make my own projects and work. You know, I didn't have to make a lot of money to live here, and I could work as a filmmaker and corporate video maker, whatever I used to do. And
Yeah.
but now the rent is very expensive. So for burgeoning artists, I think it's more difficult to make their way. You know.
Yeah, so okay, so the comedy scene blew up there. How does the film scene like did it affect that at all?
I'm actually not really sure. I think Austin has always had a very steady stream of micro budget filmmakers making content here, making movies, and then submitting them to festivals and stuff like that. And then they've also had a pretty steady flow of like professional Hollywood TV shows filming here and bigger movies, but not as big as a place like Atlanta or something like that. That's like a real production hub.
Yeah. So then how did you get into making like, something like a major motion picture living in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, got lucky, man. Really.
Isn't that what it always
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's always, I mean, you work really hard, and then it doesn't matter how hard you work. Like you have to have that right person to identify you and give you a chance. And
Yeah.
that's really what it was. I made a micro budget feature film called Tejano.
Yeah, great movie. I watched it after I watched Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I made that actually in 2015. I shot it in South Texas on the Mexican border. But I used a lot of Austin crew, and I released it in 2018, and then came out on HBO in 2020. So
yeah,
that
that's
was
surprising. You said 2015.
Yeah, it's just a long journey of like a low budget movie where I didn't really have the money to. No one was financing the movie, so I couldn't just work on it straight. I had to make the movie with I spent most of my own money on that, and then I took a break before editing so I can make some money again, like going back to work.
Yeah.
And then I just did post-production very slowly over the course of a couple of years, which is very common when you just don't have someone financing a project. And then, I just took my time with it, right? And then released it. So
why did you make it on your own budget in the first place?
well, there's a couple of reasons. Mainly, I guess I didn't try hard enough to find financing. I went to a couple of different production companies. I got turned down 2 or 3 times, and I'm not that kind of person. I'm not like a salesperson. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's easier for me to make movies. I can go shoot and direct and handle logistics and stuff like that. But to like ask for money is like very hard for me, you know? And so I just was
Worst
like,
part of being an artist. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, you know what? I can make this cheap. I shot it for $60,000, and I had that in my bank account because I've been working as a corporate, commercial director for a long time, and I was able to make some decent money in Austin, save up. So that's what I decided, you know what, I'm not going to have anyone over my head telling me what to do. I'll just do it with my own money. So,
But what about that project?
what about it?
Like, why did you say, well, maybe I was turned down, but I'm going to use all my savings to make this movie?
I mean, I just knew that I want to make movies, and I needed to make a film. I needed to make a calling card movie, and I was passionate about that story because, I set it in a place where I grew up on South Texas on the Mexican border. I put a lot of my own DNA into that story.
Yeah.
I hired a screenwriter to write the script and based on my idea, and he did a great job. And then I was able to take that draft that he did and put some of my own personal experience in there. Not that I was ever smuggling drugs for the cartel, but like
I was about to be like, damn.
I'm just saying, but like the character and like
still on the run right now.
Yeah, exactly. The character and just like his, he's a white guy, was like a Mexican grandfather, that's very much my experience. And so I don't know. I just needed to make that movie. When you're a filmmaker, when you're an artist, sometimes there's no real reason why you're making something. You just have to do it. Like you feel a compulsion inside you that has to get out, right?
Yeah,
and I can't really explain I can't explain why we do these things.
I'm a podcaster and a comedian, so I like to overanalyze things, and that that thing that pushes you to take yourself seriously, not for the first time, but you know what I mean, is something that I'm so interested in creatives, because come to you and every person has a different story for it.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know why people do what they do, like, or why, like, maybe some people want to get famous or rich, but there's better ways to get famous and rich than to do this crap. And, and like sometimes I wish I didn't have this compulsion to make movies, because it's like the hardest art form.
Yeah.
If I was just happy drawing or something like that, I can draw and I can paint and I can do other things. If I was happy doing that, then it would be a lot easier, Are
you spiritual in any way? Like,
no, not really. I mean, I've read a lot about spirituality, and grew up going to a church and stuff like that. I'm open-minded to those kind of concepts, but I don't think I'm like practicing.
No, because I don't know. I'm the same thing with you. It's like this podcast has taken off more than my comedy ever took off, but I'm a comedian at my heart. Like that's what the universe tells me. So it's funny to hear you say that, because it's like, no matter how hard it is, no matter if I get 100,000 views and then I go bomb in front of 5 people, the bombing in front of 5 people makes me feel like a more fulfillment.
Right. Exactly. And you would do it no matter what, right?
Yeah. Did you feel fulfilled when you made it?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about ambition is that you're never fulfilled, right? There's always you always have to do more. You have to do the next project, and films are just so difficult, right?
Yeah. The turnaround on it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like the amount of time you have to dedicate to the art.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot, especially with my first movie, which was I was like producing, and then there's no one telling you when you're the top dog on the film, like you're the boss. So no one was telling me to finish the movie. I had the hard drives. Like I had, if it was going to get done, I had to do it down to everything. Like adding subtitles to the movie. Like I had to do the subtitles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
What did
mean,
you not expect? Like going into it and then coming out of it, what did you learn as a filmmaker?
I mean, it probably would have been easier to make a short film. Like a lot of directors getting into the game by making proof of concept short films and like doing a number of those to prove that they can do a certain style or whatever. And I probably should have done that.
Why didn't you?
I don't know. I just, there's something about the way my mind works, and a feature just seemed more correct to me, and I just wanted to make a movie, like a feature. That's just what always been my goal, you know.
Yeah.
So
it comes out. It comes out 5 years after you make it, like officially.
Yeah.
What's that feeling like? Are you excited? Are you like, finally, this chapter's closed? Like,
I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it was such a slow rollout too, because we premiered it in 2018 at a film festival, and they did a year of going to festivals, really small film festivals, which didn't really necessarily change anything in my life. But then we got a sales agent that made the sale to HBO finally, and that's where it came out in 2020.
yeah,
Which was so surprising, you know, and to be able to have people, they had HBO, it was like HBO Latino, and they could turn on the TV and my movie was playing, you know.
yeah.
That was like a really cool feeling. People were sending me pictures of their TVs.
And as
like
you said, it was all because of you. Like you had to, at the end, if you gave up on it, that would have never happened.
Yeah, and I mean, it was all because of me, but then I was introduced to some guys and some people in Hollywood that were able to introduce me to that sales agent, and he was the one who made the sale.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have done that without those connections, right? I mean, I made the movie, and that's about as far as I could get it.
Yeah.
I did have a meeting. Someone did show it to some people at Lionsgate, and I had a meeting at Lionsgate about it, but no one picked it up there.
Yeah. That must be, I mean, how do you feel about like giving up the control then? Like giving up control on a project and letting other people do it when it's your baby.
It's a little strange, you know, and then you sign these contracts where they don't pay you any money for the movie, but then they get like a big percentage of the sales.
Yeah.
And you're
So
like,
did you not make your money back on the movie?
No, I did not. I've probably made 50 to 60 grand back.
Wow. And that's just what you
But
spent on.
the movie cost maybe 100, 115 at the end of the day.
Wow.
If you, depending on how I want to do my Hollywood accounting.
Yeah, no, I
But,
feel you.
yeah.
And that's cool that you still feel like a passion for it, even in the release. Like that's what you're talking about, that the voice in your back of the head that you don't know what, but you just have to push it.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that go to Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Basically someone at Legendary Studios saw the film, saw Tejano, and earmarked me as an interesting director because they heard the budget. I did it on a very low budget, and it has some action scenes in it that are, you know, they're fairly well done considering, if you consider my budget and how fast I shot it. I shot it in 23 days, you know.
Are you kidding me?
With a crew of 8 people.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a lot of locations, there's a lot of set pieces and things going on. So it's like, you know, if you know about filmmaking, it's an impressive achievement. If you just look at it as a film, it's a small movie, you know, but someone there saw me, and then they invited me to pitch on a project at Legendary, which I did. And this was in July of 2020. They had a project that they thought was a right fit for me. I pitched on it, and then they brought me in to start developing that with a screenwriter. And then it wasn't a month later that they decided to part ways. You know, they had creative differences with the directors who were currently directing Texas Chainsaw Massacre that was in production in Bulgaria, and I was brought in to replace.
How did that conversation go? Was it something you were excited about? Was it something you like? Did you like that franchise? How did that?
I had never thought that that would be in my second movie, you know, like that franchise is, you know, well respected. I mean, you grew up in Texas, you know about the legend of that movie. A lot of my favorite filmmakers, Stanley Kubrick, Ridley Scott, Spielberg, they all respect the hell out of that first movie, Texas Chainsaw, and they all talk about it in interviews and how much it changed filmmaking.
I had to
And
study it in
so
college. Yeah.
yeah, there's like a reverence for that movie, but it was just never something that I thought I would be a part of. And I was, I mean, shocked when I heard that news. You know, I couldn't believe it.
Did it come out of the blue?
And it came out of the blue, like the call.
Yeah.
And there was about maybe 12 to 24 hours where I didn't know if it was really going to happen. And then it happened. And 3 days after that call, I was on a plane
To Bulgaria.
to Bulgaria. Yeah.
Wow. How far into production were they when you came in?
They had shot for 5 or 6 days.
Okay.
And they put the production on hold so that I could come in. I had to quarantine. And then I had to go, and I had 3 days to go and see all the sets in the back lot and the locations and all the props and meet all the actors and all that stuff.
How much had been done in those 5 or 6 days?
5 or 6 days worth of shooting, but I ended up reshooting all of the scenes except for one. There's one of their scenes in the movie that I released, but everything else we reshot.
Where was your creative control? Like, did they tell you, all right, this is our vision and this is what we want you to do? Or did you go in and just be able to do what you wanted with it? Yeah,
I mean, there's a director has so much power in a way because it is about every detail and it's like about perspective, and there's really no one on set that has more control over the perspective of a film than the director. I mean, you have a lot of collaborators, you have a lot of artists working on the film, obviously so many creative voices, right? Yeah. But it all has to funnel through and channel through one person. So I had a ton of creative control in that sense. Maybe not as much
going in late, like,
yeah, it's not, no one was telling me how to shoot it or anything like that. I had full creative control there. I mean, but there were things already in place, like the mask had been designed and the costumes and the wardrobe were pretty much set and designed. And I didn't want to deviate from that because then if I had to use their original footage, then how you can't just change the costume from one scene to the next,
Was the script changed at all?
Yeah, we did. I talked with Fede Alvarez, who was the producer, creative producer, and we talked a lot about the script, and he basically ran me through page by page everything that they were thinking, and then they gave me the draft, and I was able to like go through, type, and change scenes so they made more sense to me. And there were a couple of, but I didn't want to make any big changes. They were all really small things, because if you make a big change, it ripples throughout the whole script, and now you have to change all these other things. And we were already in production and shooting, and we didn't have time to be making those big changes. So they did let me change a couple things just so it made more sense to me. And what else? I was able to cut a couple scenes that I just thought, these aren't going to make it in the movie.
Yeah.
These are for the cutting room floor, and I was able to say, like, let's cut these 2 scenes, and I ran it by everyone, and they said yeah. But the reason I wanted to do that was just to have more time to shoot like the rest of the movie, because there was a lot of demand for practical gore and practical blood. People don't like CGI,
Yeah.
So we're trying to get as much in camera as possible. And the sacrifice to do that is like time on set. It takes a lot of time to set those things up and to get it right. And then to do a reset if you need another take. And so I just like looked at all those action sequences and the set pieces, like the bus massacre and stuff, and said, well, how can I get more days to shoot this? So that's why I was compromising and I was sacrificing other scenes and things so I could get more time.
How do you do the scene like the bus scene then with practical gore?
Very, very tediously. Because the main problem with the bus scene was not so much the gore. It was like the COVID safety. We had to, like, it was such a small and enclosed space that we had to clear the set every hour or so for 15 minutes, I think, to, sterilize it and air it out. Right. So it was,
even after you've all quarantined to get
yeah. Even though we quarantine and everyone's testing every 2 days and everyone's negative, we still had to do these safety precautions because it was just like a very strict time to shoot. And so sometimes I would go in there and I have 20 extras and some stunt people, and I have people with blood cannons and hazmat suits, and I have 2 cameras, and I have rain machines outside, and I have lightning, and I have Leatherface with a gas powered chainsaw. I have all these like little elements to coordinate. I'm in there and we're blocking, trying to get these shots set up and trying to rehearse. And then they would say, all right, we gotta, I hadn't even shot yet. And they were like, we gotta clear the bus and sterilize it. I'm like, I just want to shoot.
Yeah.
So that was really the hard part. And obviously safety's first, and that's great. But you just never could get that flow because of this constant stop start.
How do you do then do you have multiple buses? Do you have to clean the blood off the bus? Do you just do one take?
So we had one real bus that was that we shot all the exteriors, and it can drive around on the back lot. And I shot a lot in the front. There's the front section of that bus that was like a little bit descended, and then the back section was raised. And so I shot a lot in the real bus in the front section, and then we built a set for the back section on a stage, and that's where we shot the rest of it, and kind of just marrying the two, because we would shoot them weeks apart sometimes.
How many takes would it take on the stage though? Because I'm guessing you would have to clean up, like you can't have blood everywhere after just.
Yeah. So I was like, I planned it out so that I shot everything pre-blood, and then once the blood was about to flow, I was like, all right, well, let's make sure we don't have any other shots, because this thing's never going to get clean again. And then once we started the mayhem of just spraying the blood, then it was just, or we're in the blood zone now. It's just always going to have blood, and we're often just going and adding more blood and redressing things. But yeah, the floor would get so thick with blood and slippery that I'd have to send people in with mops to clean that up so people wouldn't slip. I mean, you couldn't walk in there without falling.
Yeah, that's great. And it turned out so amazing though. That's going to be an iconic scene forever,
Yeah, I think so. I still wish I had more time.
You wish you had more time?
I had storyboards for more kills and more like stunts and things like that I wish I could have done. Like I had this, I always thought that someone would try to punch Leatherface. I mean, right now everyone's just kind of running away. They're all scared, and that makes sense. But there's going to be one brave soul that's going to try to go and punch him. And I wanted this shot where he throws a punch, but Leatherface brings the saw up, and the guy's fist goes through the saw. Just gets completely mangled. But it's just you can say a shot like that, right, as a director, but then the line producer is going to say like, oh, that's going to cost $40,000, and you're over budget. So it's like, it's easy to be creative, but you're always having to bargain with shots and time and all sorts of things. So
did you have any other kills that you wanted to be in there but you didn't get to?
Well, yeah, like this the way that Catherine dies is pretty brutal. She's kind of sneaking out the window, and then he cuts her in half, and she falls, and her entrails kind of follow her. It's a pretty brutal death. But originally, I wanted a different shot where she tries to run past him, and he holds a chainsaw out like a clothesline, and she just accidentally runs through it. But her body falls, her torso falls, and then her legs continue running like a chicken with its head cut off, and make it out of the bus.
I love that. Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's dark, and it's dark humor kind of stuff, but
no, I love that. Like
but they said it was too expensive,
Yeah. How much if you don't have to answer this if you can't, but how much does a scene like the bus cost to make?
To be honest, I really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't like looking
that shot is more than the budget of your first film.
Yeah, easily.
And it's funny that I wanted to ask you about the kills, and it's funny that you said you didn't even expect this being your second movie, anything, because in the end of Tejano, the kills, you have some like horror style kills.
Oh,
like,
really?
When the car runs over the guy's head.
Oh, yeah.
The guy, it bounces. Like, that's straight out of a horror movie. And I was like, watching it after, it kind of made me think, oh, does he want to do like horror kill? Like, it made sense kind of to me.
Yeah. And I mean, in Tejano, we couldn't get too creative with the kills because it's expensive.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is happening off screen. You don't show the head popping, you just show the bounce. But that bounce tells you everything.
Yeah.
And the way we got that bounce is I did a forced perspective thing, and I had the actor on the ground, and I had the truck driving near him, but it was maybe 2 or 3 feet away from his head. There's a big difference, and we had it lined up, and there was a big sandbag there. The truck just drove over the sandbag.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
And then I just had the actor shake his legs. I was like, you got to shake your legs.
When you did that scene, did you have ideas of horror in your mind?
No, not really.
That's so fun. Have you ever thought about that? Because when I saw that scene, it really did like blow my mind to watching the kills in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I was like, oh, there is a through line, because they're two very different projects other than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a gore hound. I've never been fascinated with kills and horror movies. I mean, like everyone, I find them effective and gruesome and stuff like that. But I've never obsessed over making awesome kills. In Tejano, it just seemed like you needed something entertaining in the film. But when I came onto this project, and I knew of Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead, and I knew what I was getting into, and I was like, all right, these kills got to be freaking awesome, man. And a lot of them were in the script, like the whole arm break, where they break the deputy's arm, and then they stab him in the neck with like, that's all in the script. Like, they came up with that, and I was like, that's a freaking great kill. And it just gets the ball rolling on the film. You know what you're into. But I got to add more kills to the script as well. So like Richter, really great character, when he gets in a fight with Leatherface and he ends up, dying. Originally, I think he was just going to get sliced by the piece of glass on the window and bleed out. But Fede said, okay, no, this guy needs to get brutalized. Like, we need a few more things in there. So I think they came up with the head smash. Richter's head gets smashed, and then I came up with the leg, Richter's leg getting broken in half, or like,
hit from the
he gets hit on the knee, and then his leg inverts or whatever, and that we came up with a gag to do that. So Richter gets pretty messed up.
That's funny that you say you weren't a gore hound. Are you now, or was that just a moment in time you did that film and now like?
I mean, I think I don't want to make like the most gory movies in the world. That's not what I'm interested in. But I mean, if you watch Tejano, I mean, he gets his arm broken on screen,
and you show, what is that, CGI?
It was what I had was, I had the actor um he was swinging a real wrench, but he was just stopping like a foot from the other actor. And then what we did is in VFX, we just took that wrench and we just made it go further, like a couple frames. And then we took the arm and we just did a warp effect.
Yeah, the arm
Warp effect.
goes,
So
like,
yeah.
yeah.
So there was no 3D or CGI or anything. It was just simple tricks, but yeah.
Yeah, I really like that.
But I'm not afraid of showing gore and gruesome stuff.
Yeah.
That's not my end goal of making a movie. Like, I really just want to tell, this is such a cliche, but it's so true. I just want to tell really cool stories. I want to tell stories about people, common people that are become heroes, have to face these great dangers. And that's the kind of stories I'm interested in. I'm not interested in telling the stories of heroes that are already powerful. I like people that are ascending to greatness or reaching deep within themselves to some primal place to like overcome some obstacle. And that's the kind of stories I want to tell.
What did you think your second movie, what did you want it to be? You said you never expected it to be this.
I mean, I don't even know what I was thinking. I put so much of my energy into Tejano, and then when it came out, I didn't know what was going to happen. I just put it in the world and was just continuing to live my life. I hadn't thought of what's next.
Really?
I didn't even,
after 5 years.
I didn't have another script or anything like that. I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to bootstrap another movie together. So yeah.
How did it doing like a major production compared to it?
Compared to doing Tejano?
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways it was easier, in some ways it was harder. So Tejano was hard.
Enjoy it more?
The what?
Did you enjoy it more? Like having
I don't know. I don't think I enjoyed it more because there's a certain satisfaction in making Tejano and just being with the small crew of people that you're very close with and just making something together. And I didn't have at the beginning, I didn't have that camaraderie on Chainsaw. I didn't know anyone. I came in, I was the new kid at school, but then they made me teacher.
Yeah.
Kind of how it felt. Like I didn't know the actors, and I no rapport with any of the crew. I was able to bring in a DP from LA that I went to film school with, so I had one known factor on set, and he and I kind of made the movie. But eventually, I got to know everyone and you develop relationships and stuff. But I think there's something about not being able to prep a movie that makes you feel a little bit disconnected from it.
Yeah.
So it really just felt like a job. I was tasked every day with solving problems, which that's what directing is problem solving.
Yeah.
And there were just a lot of problems, but they didn't feel like my problems because I didn't prep the movie. They felt like someone else's problems that I was working on. So
yeah, because I don't
think that's enjoyable.
Yeah. I don't mean to speak for you, and thank you for talking to me about it. But like when I watch your interviews, it does seem like you're kind of like, all right, I want to talk about like my project, like it does seem like that disconnect, I feel.
Well, I think it's just the nature of it.
But it doesn't come out in the project. Trust me. Like I loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that's why I went back and watched Tejano, and I loved that.
Well, there's something nice about it because in a way, yeah, I didn't prep the movie, so you don't feel like it's yours. Like if I had prepped the movie, the sets would look different, the costumes would look different, things would just be different because it's going through me. But I still felt proud of what we did and the way we made the movie. A lot of it was made just on instinct. And if you think about it, if you go back to the original, I think they made that movie on instinct too, when you read about it, because it was very low budget and it was very off the cuff. And that's how we'd made this one, just with a lot more money,
Yeah.
And there were times where I'm just so used to operating the camera because I came up as a DP, and I operated Tejano as well. I was the the cinematographer and the camera operator. I just love being connected to the camera and that sort of dance that you get to do with the actors when you're handheld. And so there were so many times where I would just grab the camera and chainsaw and just go into the set and make the scene with the actors.
That's
And
awesome.
I was just right there because I felt so removed when I was sitting in Video Village. It just doesn't feel right. You don't get to see the problems too. Like sometimes a shot's not working for some reason and you have no idea because you're 100 yards away in a tent and all you see is the monitor. You can't see outside of the monitor, but you just got to walk to set and you stand there and you look around and you see, oh, that's why this isn't working, because there's a wall there and the camera can't move and whatever. It's just some blocking.
Are a lot of directors dickheads like that? Excuse my language, but won't walk to the set and watch it and will just like be like, oh, I'll sit here in my like on my throne.
Yeah, so I worked in commercials a lot and there's always the commercial director who never leaves the Video Village. They just stay in there and you just hear them on a walkie and they're just, I feel like they're directing, but they don't know what's happening on set. So how can they make actual decisions,
Yeah.
And then the directors that I admire the most they sit very close to the actors. They sit next to the camera, even if they're not operating. Like Christopher Nolan, he's always right next to the camera with his monitor. He's always on set. And then some of my favorite directors, like Ridley Scott, used to operate on his first movies. He used to operate the camera, and that's the kind of model that I'm going for.
Do you ever think why they picked you?
Yeah, why me? I just feel like maybe he's cheap. We know he'll do it for cheap. And I think that they saw Tejano. They saw what I did for no money with a very small crew with a short shooting schedule. And I think that they thought, I had something that I could tackle a bigger project. Yeah.
But that's also, yes, that is true. And yes, it's amazing to hear now the stories behind the two, but also that's a pretty big reins to hand over, Yeah,
I could have just frozen up and not done, but they knew I had done commercials and I had DP'd smaller movies and stuff. So
horror movies. I was looking at your IMDb.
I did do a horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
A horror feature a number of years ago, and it was like maybe 1.5 million. But I've been on set. I mean, it's funny, you read comments online and people are like, who the hell is this guy? He's got no credits and he's never done anything. It's so silly because it's like I've been making movies since 1998, like the greater part of my life, and I've been on set for a long time, so.
Well, you said luck before, but isn't luck just being ready for the opportunity when it presents itself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great saying. And it definitely is, and I'm definitely been ready. Now, my credits don't necessarily show that I'm ready because you work on lots of projects. They're indie projects. They don't really go anywhere. They don't go on IMDb, but you still put that work in.
Yeah.
And you're still on set. You're still learning. Even as a DP, it's a great place to learn to be a director because you're there with the director. You're often problem solving, the storytelling with the director. And on the indie projects, depending on the style of the director, sometimes you're actually coming up with all the shots. So in that way, you're doing all the directing except for talking to the actors. And that's my experience.
Yeah.
So I've directed many movies before I did my first two.
Leaving the set, putting that, I do want to know about the whole, but like leaving that, you said leaving your first movie, you didn't know what you wanted to do. Do you have like a set of what you want to do next?
Yes, I absolutely do now, which is nice. I had been writing a film before I got selected to do Texas Chainsaw. I was writing and it was a sci-fi horror movie that I've done many drafts on. And after I finished Texas Chainsaw last year, it was the summer, I picked up that script again, and I figured out that I was approaching it from the wrong character. Like the world was the same, but I had the wrong protagonist. And I changed the protagonist, and I came up with a different way into the story, and the movie just wrote itself. Like I wrote it in August. I kind of write in spurts. I'm not good at tackling it every day like a real professional writer. But I did a spurt in August, I did a spurt in December, and then one in January. And I sold the script this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And it's I'm attached as a director, and I'm just kind of waiting.
And writer, you wrote it, and was this the first script you wrote?
First script I wrote.
Congratulations, man. That's dope as hell.
First draft of that version that I wrote. So feeling pretty good about that record.
Yeah. Are you keeping, I won't ask you about what it's about if you don't want to talk about it.
I'm not allowed to, or
Okay.
They're trying to keep it under wraps, but I hope it gets greenlit. It's it's in development, and it's in sort of that weird purgatory right now. So I decided to write more scripts, and I have 2 other scripts I'm writing right now. One is actually doable. One is I could do it for under 10 million, maybe 5. So it'd be a good next movie. The other one's probably $50 million. So
5 million's what you need for an indie film?
Well, I mean, I'm just get a movie made.
5 million's like probably the minimum. What'd you say?
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, I don't want to work less than that. I don't think I can.
Hey, you already did it. You did it at
it's too hard,
1% of that.
Right. Well, because a lot of that money just goes to insurance and actors and things like that. It's not stuff you necessarily see on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not that much money. Yeah.
All right. So you did all post-production in Tejano. What was post-production in Texas Chainsaw? Did you do anything? Did you after you finished shooting, did you kind of with it?
The director is there for every step of the process. I worked with the editor, Chris Kapp. We worked remotely. I was in Austin, he was in LA, and we would get on a call much like this every day and just edit the movie.
Yeah. And how does it get? I heard it got sold to Netflix. It wasn't originally Netflix. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Like compared to you selling your first movie to HBO?
I think Legendary was hoping that they could do theatrical with this movie, but at the time of us finishing it, they just still didn't feel super confident in the market theatrically, and they didn't feel, I don't believe, that this IP had the kind of the legs to do a big worldwide release. They had Godzilla, they had Dune, and other big movies that they were releasing that year, but they just didn't think Chainsaw had that recognition. So I think streaming made more sense.
How do you feel about it? Do you think it?
They may have been right. It would have been nice to come out theatrical. But the thing is, if it had bombed, that makes the movie look worse, and it makes me look bad. But because it came out on Netflix, a bunch of people saw it. I think it was 29 million hours viewed in the first weekend, which was a pretty big release for them. And I just think more people probably saw it getting released on Netflix worldwide. So I think that's a good thing.
How do you feel about streaming versus theatrical releases in general?
Again, every filmmaker of a certain age thinks, because I think younger people probably don't care. Yeah. Younger people grow up watching things online. So it's probably no difference to them. They like YouTube and stuff. But someone who grew up in the 90s, we want to see our movies in theaters. But then you look at the big filmmakers are releasing movies on streaming all the time.
Yeah. So do you think streaming is like ruining movies? Like they said, like Are you a fan of? Are you not anti-streaming? But what's your?
Yeah, I mean, there's no beating going to a full theater and experiencing cinema with a group of people, that a group of strangers you don't know.
So true. Yeah.
There's something infectious. It's like comedy. Like you can watch a bunch of YouTube comedians or whatever, like people talking, but there's nothing like going to a club and being in the atmosphere and just laughing with the crowd, because it's so much funnier. The laughs are better. The jokes are better. When you get, that group together. And so that's what we're missing, is the community,
100%.
Yeah. So it's the same as comedy. And there's always going to be both.
Yeah.
There's always going to be both.
You said your new script is horror sci-fi. Are you now like, do you think your career path is going to go down the horror path?
Yeah, I'm actually writing 2 horror movies. One is I would say more indie A24 horror type. And then the other one, the one I sold, is I think a little getting into more James Cameron territory, or like alien kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Aliens, yeah. Or like A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Right. So like monster horror.
That's cool that you said A24, because I love seeing those horror. I love seeing horror in theaters. That's like one of my favorite things. Like, I mean, I have my X t-shirt on right now.
Yeah.
Did you see X
that's like Pearl? Texas Chainsaw Massacre too.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Did you see X or Pearl?
I have not yet.
Is it tough, like, enjoying movies or enjoying horror when you've made it? Like, does it kind of ruin the fantasy behind it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good movie will still carry me away. If I get sucked in and I stop thinking about the filmmaking techniques, I know it's a good movie, at least for me. And that's still possible. If I just find myself watching the filmmaking techniques, I'm not in it,
Yeah. What was the last best movie you saw?
It's so funny. I started watching just on streaming that 13 Lives. I think it's 13 Lives movie. It's about the Vietnamese kids who were stuck in the cave, they were Thai. And they got stuck in the cave, and then there were these divers that came and rescued them. And I just started watching it. I had no idea Ron Howard directed it. I had no idea Colin Farrell and Viggo Mortensen were in it. I just started watching it, and I was like super captivated, and I had to find out what happened.
How do you feel on TV versus movies?
I like movies. I think TV obviously can be done really well, but I always find myself watching TV and feeling like this is 20 minutes of story stretched out to 60 minutes. And they're just trying to get some view counts or something like that.
Yeah. I think that with documentaries, every documentary today is like 4 episodes of it. And it's like, this could be an hour-and-a-half documentary. I don't need to hear about what the dude who wasn't even connected to it had for lunch. Like, you don't need to make 20 minutes on that. Yeah.
There's something I like about movies, because you have that finite amount of time, and you got to be really efficient with your storytelling.
Yeah.
And so, but TV can just take its sweet time.
What's your perfect view, like minutes of a movie? Do you think there's a time like movies can be too short or too long?
Oh yeah, there's definitely movies that are too long, and that's very common. I mean, sometimes it's all about perception. I mean, you could watch a 2.5 hour movie, and if it's well paced, you won't even notice. I have yet to make a movie longer than 90 minutes.
Really?
Chainsaw is super short.
Yeah.
I think it's like 75 minutes of actual movie,
Oh, I had no idea about that.
With a really long credit sequence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They are mad long nowadays.
Yeah. So I mean, one day I'll make a movie longer than 90 minutes. And I'll be like, I've made it.
Never a TV show.
I would make a TV show maybe.
Yeah. TV is tough though, because there's so many that it's hard for me to like watch a show. Like I'm watching Succession right now because everyone was talking
I
about
love that show.
it's so good, but I didn't want to watch it. It's like, do I really want to put in 90 hours of my life because it's an hour?
That's the thing is when people recommend shows to me, I'm so cautious to actually watch it because I could get sucked in and I'm like, man, is this really a good use of my time right now?
How do you feel about the directing on Succession as an actual filmmaker?
I mean, I don't notice it. That's why I know it's good.
Because
I'm
as
just
a
watching.
fan, it's so different to me than anything else.
I mean, it's like a handheld documentary,
Yeah.
sloppy kind of style, but I don't notice it. I'm cued into the actors and the story, and the storytelling is so good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you do you do you know who a rapper RJ Payne is?
Mm-mm.
He has so many like albums named after Leatherface and stuff.
Oh, does he?
But yeah, he has his newest album, which is honestly one of my favorites. I think it's called Leatherface 3 or something. Favorite albums of the year. Uses a bunch of like sequences, like little like words from the movie and such. I just hadn't knew if
Words from the first movie?
no, from yours.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up. I'm gonna write it down.
RJ Payne. He's an amazing rapper, but he's like obsessed with Texas Chainsaw. And so like when the new movie dropped, he made an album kind of like based off of it.
Is it called Leatherface 3?
I'll look it up right now because I also want to give him the RJ Payne. Yeah, Blood on My Chainsaw. That's the name of the album. There's the album cover. I don't know if you can see it.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to say, because this is I love rap music. I have a lot of rappers on here, but I have everybody. I just wasn't sure if you had heard of him.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm very curious how in a couple years will anyone remember this movie at all?
Really? That's how you feel about it?
No. I'm curious because a lot of movies come out and then no one talks about them ever again or ever thinks about them again. And I wonder if this movie has legs because it pissed a lot of people off on Twitter and it was very divisive, which was fun. And people talked about it for at least a month. So that's a long time in our current age. People forget about stuff very quickly.
Why was it divisive?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people hated the story and just didn't like the movie at all. And some people saw it differently and saw it as a fun ride. Some people saw that there was more depth in the story than most people took away from it. So,
that's just I don't use Twitter, but I loved the movie, and it's funny. Everyone I really talked to, like when I was telling people that I was talking to you today, everyone was so excited because at least among my peers, it's an enjoyable movie. I mean, to go back to the bus scene, which that's not the only great. There's a lot, but just no one I think has dealt with how people in social media deal with a killer. Like that's never been dealt with well before. Is like, oh no, you can record him and put him live on Instagram and he's still leather. You know what I mean? That's never been dealt with well in a movie before.
Yeah. And so that wasn't in the script. And that was one of the first things I literally said in one of my first meetings on the movie, where I was still in quarantine in my hotel in Bulgaria. And I had a Zoom screen with about 50 people on it, all in masks. And I said, why am I even seeing these? I don't know who these people are. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, I'm telling them the changes I want to make to the script. And I said, one of the first things I said was, all right, bus scene, we need cell phones. Everyone's got to have cell phones. And then I described it. I was like, and when he comes on the bus, what do people do? They all going to start filming him because that's what people do now when there's a bear or there's a mountain lion or there's a killer with a guy with a gun. Everyone just starts filming it. But they're not scared. They don't leave the situation. They stay there and they keep filming even though they're in danger. And that's the best part about our modern society. It's so bizarre. Like,
That's amazing that you came in with that idea that cell phones weren't even part of that scene, because that makes that scene like that.
cell phones were a part of the scene, but not in that way.
Yeah, not going live on Instagram. Like,
Right. I added the live, and a lot of people hated that. They were like, "Oh, he's going live. That's so stupid, whatever." But it's like, what do you? I mean, that's exactly what would happen.
that's how
And
people would deal with it.
yeah, and anyway, so yeah, I added that stuff. I did write the line, the notorious line, "Try anything and you're canceled, bro." Yeah. And people, that was one of the lines that people were like, "All right, that's the worst, the worst line I've ever heard in a movie."
Nah,
all this stuff.
nah, it's great.
But I'm like, you know what? It's supposed to be it's supposed to be kind of stupid, It's like it's making fun of woke culture.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and also you can't cancel Leatherface, man. That guy doesn't give a shit.
Well, there was like a open-ended ending. There isn't a sequel planned. As I can probably tell from this conversation.
Oh, I mean, they're gonna make another movie.
Yeah, but not.
Someone's gonna make another movie
with the Tesla driving away. Not a sequel.
I don't know if the rest of this tale needs to be told. I think if another movie is made, it'll be, different characters, and maybe it could also just be a different place in the timeline.
Yeah.
You could just jump anywhere in the decades that Leatherface has been hiding and tell a one-off story.
Yeah. How did you feel about Prey? Did you watch that?
I loved it. Yeah, it's really good.
I really like that too, and I like the idea. I know everybody talks about it now, so I'm not trying to be like cliche, but it is cool, the idea of these like characters in completely different times.
And that's exactly the kind of movie I want to make, is a movie like Prey. It's just like, it's great.
Yeah. Man, thank you for doing this. This was an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your time and everything you do.
Oh yeah, dude, I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah, this has been wicked fun, and maybe when I'm in Austin, we meet up in person.
Yes, send me an email.
I definitely will. It was great meeting you, man. Thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey.